With no more further ado, welcome to our Cropster Global webinar today, which is talking about the World Barista Championship and barista competitions in general, and what it looks like for a barista to collaborate really closely with a coffee producer. You know, we're sort of bookending both ends of coffee's supply chain with the farmer who, you know, here is David, who creates this amazing product, right? This is where it all begins. This is where all of the quality of the coffees that we enjoy really, it starts there. You know, as a roaster or as a barista, we can highlight those qualities, we can make mistakes and we can ruin those qualities. But really, at the end of the day, it all starts with the work of the farmer and the decisions that are being made with the varieties that are planted, the location of the land, the decisions that are made, the agronomy decisions that are made throughout the year, and the processing decisions, things that David's going to be sharing with us. And we're also joined here by Martin, our WBC, multiple WBC competitor, our multiple Kenya Barista Championship winner, which is super exciting. And I'll have both of you guys introduce yourself, but first I'll be your host and moderator today. I'm Marcus Young with Cropster. I'm super excited about this because while I've never been a WBC or even a US Barista competition competitor, I have been a judge. I've been a head judge, and I've organized barista competitions in Rwanda. So this is something that's really near and dear to me because as someone who's judged and has coached and has worked with farmers that are producing coffee for competitors, I have a little bit of a window into just how difficult it is, but also how I think important this work is for the industry. So I'm really excited for this conversation. And Martin, can you just take a minute or two and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work? We'll dive much deeper into your path to competition here in a few minutes, but
that's okay. Okay, so like you've heard, my name is Martin, and I've been a barista for 9 years, competed 5 times, and I've represented the country as the national barista champion 4 times in the world stage. Which is the last year's competition was the best performance, which I made it to the to the finals all the way. So thank you very much, and it's so nice to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Martin, so much. And yeah, I'm going to be excited to dive a little bit deeper into what all of those years of being a barista in Kenya looks like, and you're just a multi-talented individual. When we first met, I learned you're also making furniture now and doing woodworking as a passion. What you showed us was just beautiful. So it's neat to see how your talents expand. And David, let's hear just a little bit about your background, your journey in coffee and Maguta Estate. Well, again, we'll dive much deeper into the production of the specific coffees in a few minutes.
Okay, my name is David Ngibuini. I'm a coffee producer, as you all know. I've been in the coffee industry now for 4 years, actively for 3 years now. My background hasn't been coffee. I got into coffee by chance. I don't know if it was chance or design, but whichever is better. And I'm very enthusiastic about trying things that people haven't or getting new coffees into the market. Yeah, so that's more about me. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So David, I already lifted the curtain on Martin a little bit in his woodworking and other talents, but what were you doing before you got into coffee?
Something very different. Well, in my 20s, I'm still in my 20s, but my early 20s, I couldn't decide what I wanted. I got into aviation. I tried to be a pilot. One thing led to another. I didn't make it in the industry, and then I got into marketing. So right before coffee, I was in marketing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think as our attendees will see as we talk and as you talk more about your approach to producing coffee, really it's that background that I think makes you unique. You know, I feel like you're taking the sort of technical and all of the details that probably interested you in aviation, as well as your skills and thinking about marketing and creating products for a diverse marketplace. It seems like you're certainly applying those to the farm. So I want to keep that in mind as we continue this
Okay,
discussion.
that's good.
It's great. And very cool. I see here one of our attendees is a coffee roaster in Kigali, Rwanda, which is a place that's very close to me. John, it's nice to have you here. I was one of the founders of Question Coffee there in Kigali, so another roasting company there, which is very cool. Nice to see you. Well, and for our agenda today, I really want to have Martin share a little bit about what his steps were as he prepared for competition, what his steps were over the years, and how he sort of evolved his approach to competing from his early days in the Kenya Barista competition back as far as 2014, and all the way up to what he prepared in 2000 for the local competition in 21, and also 2021 for Milan. So I'm really excited to hear about those steps to competition. And then I'm really keen to hear from David and about his approach to coffee farming and agronomy and processing, and how what he's doing is really unique in Kenya, how he really is an innovator and a little bit of a mad scientist and a little bit of an engineer and a lot of a marketer as well, because these things don't happen by accident. And then I think also like this part of what was so powerful for me as I was watching Martin's presentation at WBC was really how deeply he was able to explore as part of his presentation the collaboration that he had with David, with Sasha, one of the inspirations for both of these guys, and what that collaboration looked like. And of course, we're Cropster. We are a software company providing technology solutions to aid things like collaboration and quality. So I want to lift the curtain and talk a little bit about what we're doing with Cropster for both coffee producers and for baristas and retailers. But through all of this, I want it to be, of course, a discussion between us three. We have some slides showing a little bit of the work that David and Martin have done. But I also want to make sure that anybody that is here as an attendee feels welcome to use the chat or the Q&A functions in Zoom to ask questions as we go. And I'll do my best to either answer those questions in the moment or table them until the end when there's maybe a better time, but we'll try to get to all of them. So with no further ado, let's talk a little bit about you, Martin, and your experience. Can you just share a little bit of your personal history with what was happening when you first decided to become a barista? What was your motivation to make coffee for people? And I think along with that question, it takes a special kind of crazy to not just be a barista, but to be a competitive barista. And I mean that in the kindest way. So I'd love to hear a little bit about just your journey in coffee, especially as someone who was a barista in such an important country as Kenya, where so much great coffee is grown.
Thank you. So I think it's a long journey, and I will try to summarize. I just got into coffee by chance, like David mentioned, and we had a need at home. I need a rose at home, and I needed to find something to do to support my family. Now, this is when I bumped into this new cafe, which was in town, and it's called Art Cafe, and they gave me an opportunity to work behind the counter. So I didn't have any experience at all. And it was my first time to see an espresso machine, to taste real coffee, And so out of curiosity with time, I really wanted to learn and dive deeper into knowing everything about coffee. And I really loved and enjoyed how the baristas over there were doing the latte arts. And so this gave me some curiosity and pushed me further to dive deeper into it. So I started off in 2011. That's more than a decade ago. And so I had never heard about competitions before. So our roster then, who are dormants, they mentioned to Art Cafe that there's this event that involves some competitions about baristas, and they were requesting if Art Cafe could send a couple of baristas to participate in it. So also that by chance I was selected among the very few just to try and represent the company in the national competition. It was intense. It was very intense. It was my first time, but I had a good team around me who at least guided me in introducing me to this competition in regards to the rules and regulations and how the competitions works out. So that year, yeah.
What can just to kind of go back and think about your history as a barista, like, you know, what does being a barista mean to you, or like how do you think of like the job and the role of a barista, you know, before competition and all of that? Like I just think it's interesting to hear from somebody making coffee in the country where it's grown as well.
Initially, I just took it as a job, like just putting food on the table. But now it means much more than that. I feel like being a barista is a part of my life, and also it's a really great venture where you can try to share your heart, what you love, and your compassion to the clients who you meet like face to face. So I take it more naturally, like something that is part of my life, and I really, really enjoy it. It's such an inspiration to the clients who are just coffee drinkers, but now they want to dive deeper into knowing much more about the coffee that they're having. So I feel very good to be part of that last link to join producers like David who grow really good coffees and the consumer. So I try to represent all the baristas at my level best. So it's really inspirational for me now. It means a lot.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about this path to competition, right? Because you won the Kenya competition, 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 2020. Which meant that you were at the Worlds 2015, 16, 17, and then 2021.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, so what was different? I mean, in 2021, where you scored so high, you did so well. Like, you know, what was different about that? Was there something different in your preparation? Was there something different in the coaching you received? Was there a different mindset that you brought to it? Just talk a little bit about that.
2021 was everything, totally everything was very different. Everything was very different. This time round, I had a really great team around me. I had a really good coffee with me, and also clever gadgets to elevate the experience of enjoying this coffee. And I didn't have any other option apart from getting to the finals. So I had a really good roster. Sam Cora, who roasted it all the way in Australia. I had a really good coach, Sasha Seshtik, previous WBC champion, and David, who produced this coffee and with a lot of precision and quality assurance. So I attribute all this to this great team.
Right. So it was an entire team effort. And what in 2020 you got back into it. You took 2 years off, right? 2018 and 2019, Martin. What did something like were you just really diving deep into coffee during those years, or did you think you were done until you met Sasha and you thought, hey, let's get back into it? Or what was that?
Actually, 2017 was to be my last year of competition, but that year was really also inspiring to me because it was the year that I made it to the semifinals through wild card. And so I had friends who really cheered me up and wanted to see me once more on the world stage to see if I can move further. And they believed in me. They believed that I could do much better than where I was. So
Right.
I wanted to give at least an opportunity to other baristas who are really good also here locally. We have really good baristas who would want an opportunity also to experience out there and get the exposure that I did on my first time in Seattle. I usually share this inspiration with them, and they're like, they really wanted to participate and get this exposure. So it just meant a lot to me, and that's all I can say about it.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
And so with this large team, with this collaboration, I know from having coached people just how much time goes into this, right?
Yeah.
As you were leading up to competition, how many hours a day or a week do you think you were spending practicing, reviewing your coffees, dialing in your brew recipes,
Yeah,
coordinating with the roaster and with David on little details about the coffee? Can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah, for sure. Now this time around, I was lucky because I had all the time with me, and since COVID came in, it really affected lots of the hospitality industry here, like all over the world. And I was part of the people who lost their jobs during COVID in 2020. So I had a lot of time to practice for the competition. So I used to spend about 6 hours a day because it was quite a distance from where I live to the training center, where they have this Black Eagle, and at least the environment was conducive for me to training. So I put in about 6 hours a day, and the time difference with Australia was quite huge. So I used to practice really late because now I had to wait for Sash to wake up and at least be in a position at least we can communicate via Zoom.
Right. And so Sasha was coaching, and it was really about routine and about timing and about pacing. Who was your team of who was your team of tasters? Like, how were you deciding? I mean, watching your routine, right? I saw you were using different brew recipes and ratios for your milk drink versus your espresso course.
Yes.
Like, how were you, as somebody who's part of Cropster, I'm very interested in data and how you log, record, and track like this process, and which flavors are working well, how many days off roast is the sweet spot. Like, how are you organizing all of that and collaborating with the team on flavor?
I wish I knew about Cropster by then, but I had a really good team. I had Edward Joroge, who is experienced barista trainer here in Kenya. He works for East African School of Coffee. And also Raphael Prime is also a very good kappa. So he helped me a lot.
Raphael's great.
Oh, you know Raphael?
Yeah. We've crossed paths several times over the years.
He's a wonderful person. He's also a really good kappa. He helped me a lot in terms of identifying the tastes of the coffee and also the signature drink.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just because I'm always, were there ever times when you disagreed with their assessment and you thought, no, this is the way I want this espresso to be extracted. This is the sweet spot, and you just pushed forward, or was it always?
No, it was always smooth. It was always smooth because it was a coffee that I had never tasted before. I wasn't used to this coffee, the way this coffee is tasted. I never tasted anything close to that. So since Sash had already tasted it and he knows that coffee really well, he advised some recipes on how I should go about the making the espresso and pulling the shots, the amount of time of extraction and the grammage. So actually it was smooth. I never had a point where I found like I needed to adjust the recipe otherwise. I just found it very smooth always.
Perfect. I mean, it helps to start with a great product, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think, I want to hand it over to David here in just a minute, but, one of the things that I thought your presentation did better than any barista that I've ever watched or judged or coached was your ability really to link what was happening on the farm directly back to what your judges were tasting in the cup. Even the entire development of your signature drink, right? Where you had food safe activated charcoal, you had sort of a stand-in for the unique fermentation medium that David was using in producing the coffee. Those farm details and the way you were able to link it all together was just amazing.
Thank you.
So before I hand it over to David to talk about what was actually happening on the farm, how did you sort of get to that point? What was your discussion like with David leading up to your final script and your final presentation?
Okay, I had never met David before, and it was Sash who introduced me to him.
Yeah.
And I really, of course, I wanted to represent Kenyan coffee in this World Barista Championship this time around. So I was looking for just a really good berries and citrus, typical flavors for Kenyan coffees. But so when I met David, I found that his coffee was tasting a little bit different, and so I found that I really wanted to use this coffee in regards to how he had taken care of it, and I think I lost the. I wanted to find balance, and this is when I decided we decided to blend the two varieties, at least to represent the Batian and Riru variety, which most of the farmers around in the producing areas had grown it. So connecting that with the presentation, it was Sasha who came up with really creative ideas, at least to find a way of bringing up a story that would involve a lot which was had happened in the farm level, and also me as a barista and representing baristas here in Kenya. So we really came together and discussed this with David and Sash to build up something that would connect the food chain and harmonize all these processes.
You're beautiful. It seems like you really had a mastery of that. I mean, I just mentioned some of the work of David's, but also discussing the short roast times, but the long development that Sam applied to this coffee back in Australia from the roasting perspective to lend it that balance and that clean, like stone fruit flavors.
Yeah.
And even down to the serving temp with your, what's it called? The compass, the thermometers.
Yeah, the compass.
And I mean, just to see a barista know their coffee so well, to know that at 40 degrees, different flavors are going to predominate, and very specifically which flavors, right? Because if you got that wrong, there's big points on the table.
Yeah, in Milan, actually, it was really, really hectic.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's amazing. So, and we'll come back in a minute and hear more about your collaboration and Sasha Sestic's involvement with you guys. But I do want to turn it over to David a little bit, right? Who I think, David, you didn't set out to create this competition-winning coffee. You just set out to create great coffee, from my understanding.
Yes.
And and I'd like just to hear a little bit about, for some folks who don't know, maybe about sort of what's typically happening on an estate like Maguta in Kenya. And then what you all are doing that's so unique and so different, how you're kind of pioneering and innovating things.
Okay. Basically at the farm, we're just like any other farm, basically at face level. And when I started out in 2018, before I started out in 2018, I did some research for about 6 months in 2017. The research wasn't available in books or online on how to produce or how to process coffee for yourself. Before, we used to take coffee to our local cooperative. We deliver the cherries and we're paid for that. But I wanted to do more with our estate. So in 2017, I visited about 20 to 30 estates. That's how I got to learn about how to produce coffee or how to process coffee after harvest. And of course, Kenya being very famous for washed coffees, I learned the washed process. And that's what I did, because I thought that's what everyone does. That's how everyone is maintaining their estate. I have to do the same because it's the information that was there. So in 2018, I produced my first coffee lot. It was a washed. I got some kind of feedback of the coffee wasn't like the typical Kenyan coffee. Our coffees are more of a peach, apricot, while people who are looking for Kenyan coffees washed are looking for blackcurrant, high acidity. Acidity was mild, and I wanted to from then on, some the feedback like that. It was a bit harsh because it comes to me as the product is not good enough. So it got to the heart. So I wanted to change how I was doing things, and I didn't know how to, until I met somebody who talked about fermentation, and he's a barista from Estonia. He talks about fermentation, and he told me I can give you a book that you can learn or get inspiration from. So after reading this book by Sasha Sestek, I got now very curious. I got mad about trying to learn how to process my coffee in a different way. I learned about naturals. I learned about semi-naturals, and from then on, it's been a way to try this and this and that, and to see how best I can get a good coffee from my estate. And yeah. So even for whatever Martin used for the competition, it honestly wasn't. I hadn't sat down and calculated and said that this would be. I just wanted to do something unique. And I remember when there's once we spoke with Martin and on phone. I don't know if he remembers this. There was one process I tried. I tried and I told him I have something special for you. So for you to try. It was temperature controlled, and it was the Barton variety. The first time we ever met, it's what he tasted. We tasted, him and Sasha and I. So that's what led on to the coffees that he used to WBC. And so at the farm, we tried to run the coffee estate as a business. First, by we don't use the conventional methods of pruning and spraying and things like that. Usually, we have varieties that don't require heavy inputs of chemicals. That's a Royal variety, and the Batian. We have some SL, but in small numbers. So we barely use chemicals in our estate. We also use biochar, where when we change cycle from each farm, the farm is divided into blocks. So when we want to change to rejuvenate a certain block, we cut the branches and we burn the wood. We don't waste it. We burn it in an environment that is anaerobic. That creates a biochar that we use also on our trees. And I think that was one of the reasons why Martin used the activated charcoal in his presentation. And so yeah, I just tried to do things a bit different to set myself apart. Honestly, You see, I come from a family where the estate we're in was owned by my grandfather. So my grandfather would do the washed process. He did, and my father came and did the same. So I thought, why should I do the same? What they did was good. It paid bills. It got me to where I am today. But I just wanted to add a little edge to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that. And I love, like, I mean, when you talk about operating your farm as a business, one of the very first things you said when you took the stage here today was, you know, you had been just selling your cherries to a cooperative to do the processing, right? So you sort of stopped and made the investment to, you know, pulp and wash and ferment and do the coffee on your own.
Yes.
And yeah, and I think, and the biochar to stabilize the pH and to hold moisture in the soil. I was lucky enough to have some meetings with like Peter Kettler, who was really a big fan of the biochar movement, maybe 10 years ago, and see that come together in Rwanda. So it's cool to hear your practical approach to that as well. You know, and thinking about it as a business, right? You're creating these very unique lots and you're trying unique processes. Like, are you producing like micro lot after micro lot after micro lot, or are you really looking at sort of a larger production, you know, larger scale lots that are consistently good quality? What's your approach to sort of managing yields and lot sizes and batches and things?
In the beginning, it was more of micro lots because it was more of experimentation.
Okay.
But now, moving forward, especially from this year, I'll try to do more bigger volumes and replicate what is already working. But initially, it was micro lots. I mentioned to you earlier, Marcus, that we do 22 lots in a season. We do 18. It depends. So it's all based on the number one, the viability of space, the viability of our resources, and what we can do and what we can't do. But now moving forward, now that I can't say I've mastered, but now that we know that this is working and this is not working, we're able to do larger volumes and to be consistent with what we're trying to achieve.
That's awesome. You know, as you were doing these trials, how were you deciding what to produce as a micro lot? Were you looking at different blocks of the farm? Was it only based on processing? Was it based on beginning, middle, end of the harvest? Like, what were some of the trials you were undertaking?
It all begins from the farm because, like I said, we do it as a business. So I can't. Sometimes we don't want to add inputs to the whole farm. For us, our inputs is manure. We may not have the manure to add through the whole farm, so we do it in blocks, maybe by 1,000 trees. So we were able to decide that maybe this section may be more fertile than this section, so we're able to produce a better quality coffee from this section to this section. And also variety-wise, for example, the Batian, which I keep talking about, the Batian, especially the 2020, 2021, the cherries were quite different. I remember picking each cherry and comparing it with the Roiro. So I'd pick a cherry and weigh it. I'd find that the Batian, the weight of one cherry is 3 grams, and the weight of a Roiro or an SL is between 1.6 to 2 grams. So that means that there's more. It doesn't have to translate on the cup, but from the farmer side, I would say that this coffee seems to have more nutrition in it. So that's how I'm able to create a micro lot from that. So it's from the soil to how the cherry looks, or from the quality of harvest.
That's super interesting. In that example, did you find like the Batian, the ultimate seed, the green coffee that was finally processed? Was that also a larger or denser seed, or was that weight difference primarily in the cherry?
The weight difference was in the cherry.
Okay.
When it gets to the green coffee, the difference was in the cup taste. That's where the difference was.
Yeah. Fascinating, fascinating. And yeah, here's just some additional photos that I think you shared, operating it as a business. I'm always curious, I'm sure you're having to employ community members, as pickers and to help with the processing and things. What, and adding value to the community is a big part of it, but also I think training and making sure that your employees are adding value to doing coffee a new way, right? Have there been challenges on that side?
Yes, we've had challenges, especially with harvest, because before there's a way, there's a culture of harvest everywhere, in every region, maybe in Kenya, in Ethiopia, they all have a culture of harvest. And in our area, because to them it's more of a commodity. So the people want to sell bigger volumes. They don't really care about the cup. Much more volume and get more income from the volume. But our approach was kind of different, because we have processes where we wanted to use cherries that are purple. You tell someone to harvest a purple cherry, to them in the Kenyan system, to them that's an override. That's something bad. But for us, we can do a lot with an override, or rather a coffee that's, for us, when it's purple, using the Brix meter, the sugars are past 20, 23, 24. When it's wine red, it's borderline 2019. But they don't know that I've done the measurement for this and this and that. That's what I'm trying to achieve. But
right.
It was a challenge telling them that I need a lot where I only see wine red. I don't see anything yellow. I don't see any blemish, or I want a coffee a lot that is all purple. That it's a challenge for them to convert. Being most of them have been coffee longer than my age, so it was hard to convince people. But now the culture is growing, so at least
Good.
yeah.
And did you incentivize them with like unique payment methods, or paying more, or paying by time versus volume? Was there some way that you were able to kind of financially incentivize your employees to achieve what you wanted?
Yes, because of the sorting process, the sorting process we do, the system is we do it by quality. So it almost takes a whole day for them to sit down and sort. So of course you don't pay them for half a day, you have to pay them for a whole day. You've taken someone's whole time, and most of the time it's women. So we would pay like $2 extra for the daily rate. We decided not to pay performance based, because we're not after volume, we're not after sorting 100 kgs, 200, we're after quality. So we have one rate for them to do a sorting, a quality kind of sorting.
Amazing. Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I was talking to a friend of mine, Willem Boot, who produces coffee in Panama. And yeah, as they were trying to also get the more purple and wine red cherries harvest, it was teaching the local people, and he ended up paying them just based on an hourly wage, so that they didn't feel the pressure to pick high volume, but to pick based on quality first. Incredible, incredible. And can you talk just a little bit about, so for the coffees that you produced that Martin ultimately selected and used, how were these coffees processed? Did you do the final blending at the mill or the farm, or was this coffee blended later on? So just a little bit about these specific coffees that Martin competed with.
Okay, the one for Martin, we tasted, Martin, Sasha, and I, and immediately we concluded the results and everything. Sasha carried everything that was on the table, so and I had to keep that aside and process it. It was a small lot. It wasn't very big. I had to, at the meal, it had to be separate. I had to keep everything separate all the way till export. And then for the Ruero, I think they selected one of them from the mini lots I had done. Yeah, so I think that's how it came to that.
Okay. And for those, was there any unique processing that you undertook? Did you use a?
For the but the fermentation for that was temperature controlled.
Okay.
That means we kept it in almost 0 degrees or slightly higher than that. I'm not very sure on that. And would find that the pH or the sugars would almost not drop immediately. When you ferment a coffee like in normal environment, the sugars drop fast. But that one, the sugars took time. I think we did that fermentation for almost 10 days, and you'd almost not tell that this coffee is a natural from the green coffee because it was very controlled. It was unique.
Amazing. That's incredible. Yeah, that intentionality is so impressive to hear. When you're keeping these very small lots together and separate, how are you keeping track of all of that? This is like my data question back to you, right? It's a lot of tags and labels and details in books or spreadsheets, probably. Cropster, of course, provides the tools to do all of this in one platform now, but that wasn't part of your scene at this point.
Yeah, at that time, it was almost a headache. I tried to find ways. I even tried to formulate to get my own software made. That didn't work well because I'm not in the software industry. But
we're here for
I
you,
tried.
David. We're here.
Yeah, that was before, and then
I know.
Yeah, then later on, I got to Cropster, and now it's much easier to segment and to store my data. But before it was a headache, honestly.
I bet, and especially if you're trying to share any of those details back, so that like Sasha and Martin and other collaborators sort of understand and see what's happening. It's nice to have a centralized spot now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, and just looking at your farm and these like really nice drying tables, it's these photos to me speak volumes about the care and the intention and the fact that you are approaching this as a serious business. The thin layers of coffee on the drying table is a very tight, stiff material that makes up the base. This is next level stuff. Let's talk a little bit about this collaboration, because we've heard, from both of you guys, and a little bit about what this looks like. And, I'd love to hear, like, just how did you guys meet? I mean, I know that this character, Sasha Sustik, was a big part of it, but I'd love to hear that story, from both of your perspectives. I think you both met him independently, and then he connected the dots with you guys. Martin, why don't you share a little bit about this relationship?
Okay, all right. For me, Sasha just, I think on this last day in Kenya, I didn't know he was always coming to Kenya, and I never knew he was around. So he just reached out by sending an Instagram message to me and asking if I could spare a minute, because he was heading towards the airport and leaving Kenya then. So unfortunately, where I live is closer to a bypass connecting from where I live to the airport. So it was easy for me. It was less than 30 minutes drive to where he was. I was so excited, and this is when he suggested if we could work together and towards the 2020 World Barista Championships. So he suggested also that he has a farmer that he works with, and I came to know him as David now, and he wanted me to visit David. That's in 2020 when he would be coming back. So when he came back later on, we went to David's farm, and this was the first time I met David. And after seeing how David was doing wonderful practices at the farm and testing the results in the cup, I was so excited that I gained a relationship with someone that we can work together for a long-term relationship.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And David, how about for you? So you were given this book that
Yeah.
inspired you to undertake all of these trials and you know, and not without risk, right? I mean, if this didn't work, there were real financial implications. But
Of course, yeah.
how did you finally connect the dots and meet Sasha and start collaborating directly, not just from the book?
Immediately after the book, like I said before, I got crazy with trying to understand, because of course the book doesn't dive deep into details, and so I had a question mark, and I wanted to solve that problem. So I tried some things myself. I tried several things, but and I thought later on, why don't I just search the name of the author or the person in the book and see if they can answer a question or two. Or honestly, I just wanted him to answer a question or two, just so that I can get some light into it. And I reached out again via Instagram, very powerful tool. And yeah, for the rest is history. He responded after some time. But to be honest, Martin doesn't know this. I met him before time at a latte art competition in 2019.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at Pete's Cafe. I don't know, Martin, you know Pete's Cafe?
Yes, I know it.
Yes, I was fresh into
Crazy.
the markets, and I met him there. So I was trying to follow everything, every latte art competition, everything. I was everywhere. But now officially, when Sasha came and he connected us when we were at the cupping lab tasting some coffees, that's when I really got to meet Martin and have a one-on-one with him.
That's really cool. I love that connecting of the dots. And I guess, Martin, for you, I want to hear just a little bit about, the path to working with David. I mean, of course, you tasted the coffee and the results were sort of in the cup, but what about on the personal level? How did it feel different working with David with your coffees than it had felt with the past coffee selections you had made as a competitor?
Yeah. So this working with David was totally different for me, because I had not had this personal relationship with a farmer or a producer. Previously, what we used to do, we had really good coffees from the auction, and then we capped a lot of coffees with the experts like I mentioned, Raphael. Then we selected one coffee, and then we went to the farm to find more information about it. But it was just an overview. So mostly it was just it wasn't really understanding exactly what I really wanted to share with the world. And but now, having met David, who is like more or less my age mate, we really connected to each other really well, and understanding I loved it, because I found someone who is willing to he's very open to experiments. He's really exposed in trying new techniques, and I knew that I had found the right person to work with to at least get a milestone in this in the competition journey. So
Nice.
for me, meeting David, it was very different. It was very different.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it, right? As a barista competing in a country that produces coffee, which that's not the case for most baristas, right? We can count on a hand the number of finalists at WBC who have been from producing countries. It sounds like with David, you were really able to sort of take advantage of the fact that you were both in the country, that David was growing this coffee and you were going to prepare it. That's incredible. And just like, from just selecting auction coffees and getting them roasted and brewing them, like specifically, how was the experience different? I mean, this photo, I think, says a lot about what it was like, but what were some of the things that really made it different for you as you were preparing for competition, having this access to a kindred spirit like David?
Honestly, that photo was it's a really special photo for me, because I had to that was my first time looking for as in looking at experimental coffees, just and holding them with my hands. So this time around, it was a world of exposure, and at the farm level, a lot of experiments with the charcoal and fermentation. It was just overwhelming. Like everything was different, and I was really inspired to move forward. And also during the practice for the competition, the innovations like the brewing gadgets and what I used to at least to elevate the experience on how and enhance maybe how the judges could enjoy this coffee better. So it really exposed me in the innovation side. And this time around, teamwork was portrayed at its best.
Amazing.
My collaboration with David and Sash, and then also a couple of more people here locally who really helped me a lot in testing the coffees and watching my routine as I was practicing. I felt like teamwork came in a very special way for me.
Awesome.
Yeah. So this time around, everything was very different. Everything.
And David, I think back to you, right? I mean, here is a chance for your coffee to really be on a global stage and represented by, like, I think the biggest smile in specialty coffee, which I love. Can you tell me a little bit about what it meant to be part of this team and to be connected like so directly to people drinking and preparing your coffee?
To be honest, there was the talk of the coffee being used for the competition. I just didn't know it would actually be used.
Yeah.
For me, it was just busy at the farm. I was busy going on with my daily life. I honestly, it hadn't yet dawned on me that it would actually be used. So for Martin, especially for me to finally to see that it was actually used and to watch Martin live each time, it gave me a sense of a form of of pride in my product, which conversely the previous time I thought I didn't have a good product before. And this especially dawned on me when in Martin's routine there was a document where that time everyone is in different locations. So Martin would have a document that he'd share with Sasha on his side, and they would correct this, and then they'd send it to me, and I correct on my end. So now when that happened is when it really got to me that honestly that it's going to happen. That to me, I still feel like it's not yet true, but anyway, I'm just more thankful than anything else.
And you're a business guy and have marketing experience, and you think of your farm business first. I keep hearing. What has this meant for business? Have you had more calls from buyers, more interest from customers?
Yes, it's since that day I have a lot of emails, Instagram. Everyone's asking for the WBC coffee or a coffee from Maguta. Before I couldn't get anyone to taste my coffee. Now people are asking for it, so it's good for business.
Yeah, I mean, I count myself amongst those as somebody who still occasionally buys green coffee. I certainly wish it was easier for me to get my hands on some as well here in the US. So it's working, man. That's really cool. Yeah, I love that. And and I do want to just talk just for a minute about technology in coffee. And I want to unveil a little bit about what Cropster is doing on this side of things. And David, as a Cropster user, and you've already shared a little bit about the difficulty of keeping track of all of this data. Cropster does have tools for coffee farmers, and these are just some generic shots, but how, even offline in the farm, in the field, you can receive deliveries from individual pickers or from unique blocks of the farm, or even from outlying farmers whose coffee you might be processing on their behalf, right?
Yeah.
And then really the ability to, log all of these batches and how you're processing these coffees, and track that, all the way through, really specific yields and varieties and the types of processes that you're doing. I think it's like a major step, right? Hopefully in the right direction. So I'm just curious, this is somewhat of a new tool for you and for a lot of producers, but if you can just share a little bit about what technology. I mean, you're clearly an innovative guy. You want to try new techniques. You want to apply, sort of best processes and practices. What does technology look like, and how do you consider technology on the farm?
I think technology will take production will elevate production leaps and bounds if it's done right. And for example, even the way currently I'm using Cropster for my lots, and now that we're working on a project together, partnering with Project Origin right now, is we're having a lot of coffee from outside for us to process at Maguta, and it's easy for me to track. I'm able to see that I may be getting higher loss from the cherry to the clean coffee from this side or from this side. So I know that we need to go back to the farm and do some more work. From coming from either this group of farmers or from this individual person. So it's really going to help us fine tune the details. It's what the devil is in the details, especially in coffee. If you miss, if let's say in fermentation, it's something you do wrong, it all translates all the way to the farm, even from the farm level to delivery to how it was stored to whether we used a basket or a nylon bag. It all depends, and if you're able to track this, we're able to make a big difference in the quality of our coffee, and of course that translates to how much we make from our coffee.
Right. Yeah, quality, and I mean, I think it's tying all of the decisions at the farm to the quality impact of those decisions and also the yields, right? Because you might make a decision that has a major impact on quality, but if the yields become so low, it may not be financially viable to pursue that path, right? Or only in unique cases. And this is, we're kind of in some ways lifting the curtain on our Cropster's newest product, which is Cropster Cafe, which, I'm just curious to get some of, Martin's impressions on this, because, I know that I've had lots of notebooks, lots of spreadsheets over the years, even working in a cafe, a lot of like a pen marking directly on the hopper of the espresso grinder, like what's my ideal brew recipe, right?
Yeah.
And Martin, in your presentation, you even talk about that, right? It was 21 grams in, 40 milliliters out for your milk beverage, right?
Yes.
But it was what, 20 grams, and I don't remember the yield for your espresso, right? So quite different.
Yeah, it was 20 grams per cup.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So, so you can see, like, with this is just one example of like just a generic house blend. We didn't use your specific example for this data, but where we're really able to sort of track our dose, even the grind, if that's something that can be consistent, which, it often can be using like an EK, and the yield, the time, if you're tracking TDS and extraction, and then also descriptors, and you're able to really find the sweet spot for the coffee. Right? I'd much rather taste hazelnut with berries rather than just hazelnut. And then even tracking multiple extractions over time, so you're able to sort of watch how that coffee and that recipe might change day by day as that coffee ages. It's pretty powerful. So
yeah, for sure.
Something for everybody to look out for. But do you think that a tool like this would have been useful in your preparation? Or
far much useful for me. For me, I can't imagine. I just went through it after when I came back, when I met Tony, who is a very close friend of mine here.
Yeah.
And going through it, it's a lot more effective and efficient than what we previously were doing. I just love how you can improve and share your brewing standards, like how you can track your quality and consistency in the parameters and the recipes, and also the equipment. So that's super accessible. It's
Right.
super accessible. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like a tech guy, right? I mean, I just want to give you a chance to talk about, you kept talking about the gadgets that you had at your disposal. Can you share a little bit about the kind of gadgets that you just had as part of your, not just the preparation, but as part of the routine?
I had the compass. Now this is the most. I love this the most. The compass, which would it's a temperature reader. Really, really effective, and it's super simple. It has good like battery life, so you can really enjoy your espresso in different stages, or even coffee. It has different heights, so you can adjust it anytime in whichever cup you want. You can really enjoy your coffee like in different temperatures and try to find new flavors, which elevates the experience on how you're enjoying your coffee even more.
Very cool. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I even think like, employing a charcoal filter for the espresso in your signature beverage is a type of technology. And, I think as software, also becomes part of this scene. That's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's great. I think we're at the top of the hour, guys. We've actually gone a little bit over, so I really appreciate you sticking around. For attendees, I just pasted in the chat the YouTube video of your WBC performance, Martin, so folks can watch that if they're interested.
Thank you. Thank you.
But, I just want to thank both of you. I do want to give any of our attendees a moment if they have some questions. I did see a few folks come in the last 10 minutes. I think we got caught with this webinar by a time change. We've already entered our daylight savings time here in the US, and I know that hasn't happened in Europe. So I fear that because of that, some of our European attendees were an hour later on joining, which I feel really bad for. But this is recorded, so everybody can watch it. But if anybody has any questions, now is the time to ask. And also in the meantime, if folks want to learn more about Cropster and some of our new tools for, today we really focused on the producer and the barista, but of course we have our core roast product as well. You can always learn more here. But any parting words from you guys or any questions from our attendees? All right, well, I guess silence means that we are done. But David, thank you so much for joining us, for your time. I do see my colleague Tony here has his hand raised on the participant screen. Maybe my colleague Hannes can let Tony speak, promote him to a panelist. Or Tony, if you want, if you have a question, you can type it into the chat window and we'll answer it here. Tony is my Cropster colleague who is based also in Kenya with these guys. And Tony does have a question for David. So he's typing it here in the chat and I can just convey that to you, David, since you're on your phone. Yeah, go ahead, Tony, type that in. You are able to talk now.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Tony, nice to have you here.
All right. Yeah, so David, you're a really young farmer, which is quite inspiring for many guys around Kenya. And then there is a trend that I've realized, especially in the western part of Kenya, Nandi, that region there. So the average age for coffee farmers nowadays in that region is like minimum average, on average is like 40 years. Do you feel like it's a trend that Kenyan farmers are picking up? And do you feel like it's a good trend and a good direction, especially because coffee production has been really going low over the years? What's your feeling about that? And would you also like to encourage more young farmers or older farmers to try and bring up younger blood in the farming systems and everything?
Yeah, yes, and I think that the younger the median age gets, the better our Kenyan coffee will be represented. Because I think there's quality Kenyan coffee, but we're slowly dying off because our volume is getting lower. We have more urbanization, more industrialization, but with more youth going back to coffee production and doing it in a tactical way or in a better way than the people before us did. Of course, I think Kenya will be back on the map. We'll have better coffees. We'll have better competition coffees, and I think it's going to change everything.
That's true.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
and I think like the spirit of innovation, right? That you bring, David, where you're applying other life experiences and sort of knowledge and expertise just outside of coffee is really inspiring to me. And I think it's cool to hear that in that part of Kenya, the average age is relatively young compared to the rest of the world. So hopefully this is a trend that continues, and very cool. I'm so inspired hearing that.
Yeah, that was my question.
Great. Well, thanks everybody. To our panelists, I'm super inspired. What a great way for me to start my day since it's morning here on the west coast of the US. I hope it was a nice way for you all to wrap up your day into the evening there in Kenya. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you everybody for joining another Cropster webinar. If you want to come back and review this, or you arrived late, keep an eye out on our social media, our webpage, and our YouTube channel, and we will have this posted there soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.